Oscar Wilde once said that life imitates art far more than art imitates life. This seems especially true of the establishment media, which often reads more like slam poetry than journalism. If you attended a liberal arts college, if you have ever spent too much time in a major city, you've likely heard of slam poetry. Well, now you can have exactly the same experience when you turn on CNN or when you read the New York Times. I happen to be very well versed in both left-wing journalism and terrible left-wing art. So I think that I can bring my expertise to bear and still tell the difference. But my producer thinks otherwise. So I'm going to take all my artistic and journalistic skills and I'm going to try to discern whether random scraps of left-wing claptrap are woke poetry or broke journalism. Before I begin, I want to let you know this video is sponsored by My American Hat, the best place to get patriotic hats. More from them later. But without further ado, let us begin. Breathe, America. Donald Trump's knee is off your neck. You rose, more than 75 million voters strong, and shoved him off your back. The debilitating weight that rendered you helpless for 4 agonizing years is no longer there. You are free now. You survived. He thought he had convinced you that living with a knee pinned to your neck is not as bad as some make it out to be. He thought that you would be content to remain under duress for 4 more years if he dangled a few distortions in your face. Still, he thought he had you beaten. He thought he had drained every bit of resilience from your veins. He thought you had given up. He was sure he had won. Not only did you free yourself, you liberated more than 70 million others who voted to stay exactly where they were. Some didn't even realize there was a knee holding them down. Okay, this is a little tricky because, well, I guess they're all kind of tricky, because one giveaway for slam poetry is when they just randomly start repeating words. You know, like Donald Trump, 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 put his knee on your back, back, on knee. You know, like they do this kind of stupid thing and they think it's artistic. So this didn't have that, which is a point for its journalism. But because it keeps going back to this motif of the knee on the neck and then obviously all the other diction, I'm going to say that that was left-wing slam poetry. Oh no, this is gonna be a long test. Okay, so this is from the Chicago Tribune. This is a column. The title is "Breathe, America. Donald Trump's knee is off your neck," and there it is. You rose more than 75 voters strong. Wow. Yeah, I was pretty confident. I was like 70% confident that was slam poetry. Okay, Chicago Tribune is. I mean, that's a very left-wing paper. All right, let's try again. James Comey testifies before Senate. While testifying before the Senate, FBI Director James Comey made it abundantly clear Russians interfered in the 2016 presidential election. There's no fuzz on that. Okay. Shouldn't we all be up in arms? Nothing to distract the facts besides the problem at hand. When President Trump fired Comey last month, he said it was for the email investigation, though he later admitted it was really Russian allegations, labeling honesty as misinformation. His son-in-law tried setting up a secret line of communication, undisclosed contacts with another nation. Asian, undisclosed contact. That's not even a full sentence, so that's a little bit more in the poetry area. Kushner, Flynn, where does the truth begin? Okay, you know, I started this one out thinking this was definitely journalism, but now I'm not so sure. Suspicion in the wind, static in our sleep, demanding our dreams, unquestioned loyalty. Our country is full of no questions, please. This is tough because I would divide this in half. I would say if you asked me about the first half, I would say it's definitely journalism. If you asked me about the second half, I would say it's definitely slam poetry. It's tough too because even the Asian rhyme, it could just be like really weak prose, like really weak journalism. I'm still gonna say journalism. Really? Man, see, that's tricky because by the end, play, do it.
His son-in-law tried setting up a secret line of communication, undisclosed contacts with another nation. Kushner, Flynn, where does the truth begin?
Wow. I just thought, here's my defense, I just thought it was so topical and specific and stupid and ugly at the beginning that no one, not even a slam poet, could pretend that that was art. But I was wrong. It was tricky. That was a tricky one. Seems like everything is so unclear these days. Everything is so up for debate. Are men women? Are babies people? Are riots mostly peaceful? Very controversial questions. But I hope that we can all agree on one thing. You should never be ashamed to be an American, which is why you need to check out My American Hat. Started by a group of first-generation Americans, My American Hat looks to heal the social fabric by focusing on what we all should agree on. Patriotism should not be controversial. Whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, by wearing My American Hat, you demonstrate support for civilized political discourse, unity, and mutual respect. More than just a neatly designed 100% American-made traditional baseball hat, My American Hat is a symbol of unity of our great nation. It's wonderful to buy American-made products. Increasingly hard these days. It might get harder depending on how this election turns out. A portion of the proceeds from My American Hat will be forwarded to the charity Fallen Patriots, which you can find at fallenpatriots.org. This is a nonprofit organization created to provide college scholarships and educational counseling to military children who have lost a parent in the line of duty. Go check them out, My American Hat. All right, let's get into something very un-American now. More broke journalism and woke poetry, and maybe the two will conflate. Out of Portland tear gas, an apparition emerges. She emerged as an apparition from clouds of tear gas as federal agents fired pepper balls at angry protesters in the early Saturday darkness. A woman wearing nothing but a black face mask and a stocking cap strode toward a dozen heavily armed agents, attired in camouflage fatigues. She stood calmly, a surreal image of human vulnerability in the face of an overpowering force that has been criticized nationally by civil rights advocates. The agents, in gas masks and helmets, continued firing pepper balls in a staccato pop, 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 aiming low at the asphalt, where puffs of smoke mingled with clouds of gas. This actually is the best poetry that I have seen from any slam poetry ever. However, I do know that this is journalism, sort of, because I read it. I remember reading this article, and it's so insane, and it's terrible journalism, but it actually is probably the best slam poetry I've ever heard. I knew it. I got lucky on that one because I already read it. Wow. Okay, cool. Snaps from me. And there she is. I don't need to see that picture. We can take that picture off the screen. I already read the article. No one needs to see that. An invitation to Donald Trump on behalf of all Mexican Americans. You are right. Some of us are good people. You forget that in 1492, men like you stole our gold, raped our women, murdered our children, and labeled us as outsiders in our homeland before stealing the dirt beneath our feet. Tell me, who really brought crime, drugs, and rape to this country? There's so much to say here. There's so much to say. I'll restrain myself until the end of, I guess, a poem, but we'll find out at the end. Don't forget, we not only clean your houses, mow your lawn, pick your food, cook your food, serve your food, pave your roads. We are lawyers and professors, doctors and politicians, teachers and students, priests and poets. So you're kind of tipping the hand. Our grandparents built this empire. We are grandchildren of revolt, the true savages they forgot to burn. America is our home too, and we will not surrender. Man, I didn't know the Scottish did all those things in America. Gosh, those Scots, man. I thought it was like the Spaniards, maybe some Italians. Okay, they're going after the Scots. I also love the idea that there was no rape, there was no murder, nothing like that in the New World before the Europeans got here. The Aztecs didn't slaughter 80,000 people in 4 days at the consecration of Tenochtitlan, right? No, they did. Okay. So it reads, it's emotive, it's all very, it's very personal. So in that way, it seems poetic. But I feel like I've read things like this in journalism, like very similar things like this in journalism over the past few years. So I think the poetry here is a misdirection. I'm going to say this is mainstream journalism. Really? Wow, that's...
Our grandparents built this empire. We are grandchildren of the revolt. The true savages they forgot to burn. America is our home too, and we will not surrender.
Yeah, Jim Acosta's looking great. He's looking better than ever. Okay, well, that was probably the hardest one yet. All right, do we have any more? Is that it? I just lost. I got one. I was 1 for 3. And it was only because or 1 for 4, 1 and 3, and it's only because I had read that one before. That is really sad. Because I have to say, I don't think it's just that I'm really bad at this. I've actually sat through a lot of slam poetry, which the literary critic Harold Bloom once rightly called the death of art. I have listened to a lot of slam poetry. I have friends who have performed slam poetry, and I have read a lot of journalism, and I have friends who are journalists. That's actually probably more embarrassing than the friends who are slam poets. I've spent a lot of time on this, and you still can't tell, because they are one and the same, not just the death of poetry, but the death of journalism as well.